Hey y'all, I'm Elisa and I am the Scrappy Wife behind scrappywife.com, and today I have a traveler's notebook process video for you. I'm working in an A5 journal and I actually made this one myself using papers from Felicity Jane and just some standard white cardstock. So you can see it was fun kind of having the pre-made pages, having a pattern ready to go on a page. Kind of helps you focus a little bit more. So today I'm going to be scrapping this picture of one of my sweet boys, and it kind of sums up how we are all feeling these days. So I wanted to use that. I'm going to use this print from the Megan collection, I believe. Yes, from Megan, and super excited. It's one I've been saving and loving, and I can't wait to work with it. So I will put you all on fast forward. I'll try to link anything I use down below. Otherwise, let's go. This is definitely one of those papers that I have been hoarding. I kind of want to just buy the Megan collection all over again just for this particular paper. I love it. I love rainbows. There's something about them that I find really inspiring. And so I knew when I was going to use this paper that it was going to be a special page, and I think this is definitely one of those times. The first thing I am doing is just fussy cutting out all of the colors of this rainbow because I'm going to layer them into my traveler's notebook. I won't make you watch the whole thing, but you can see I'm just going to fussy cut out all of the pieces, and I will use them across this 2-page spread to bring the 2 pages together. You're going to get to see the beautiful colors of that rainbow, and it's just going to be a really impactful element. I like that there are some parts of the Felicity Jane collections that you can fussy cut and use in this way. Before I start with my mixed media elements, I am going to come through on this page and prep it with gesso. I recently got the Art Basics clear gesso in the mail, and I'm so happy because it is just the absolute best. So I'm putting it on my page here. My brush that I was using ended up being kind of rough. I don't really clean my brushes very effectively sometimes, so there were lots of lines being left. You'll see me come back with a kind of credit card look, and really I wanted to just make sure the gesso was as smoothed out as possible. And you do see a lot of wrinkling over there on the left, but that doesn't show up in the end product once it's all dry. Now, before I put my rainbow pieces on, I'm coming through with some metallic watercolor, and I like using metallic against these matte pages because I really think it pops off. I'm starting with just some white here. One of the reasons I prepped my pages was knowing I was going to be using watercolor, that I'd want it to be able to move across the page. Not so much worried about the bleed through, but really more worried about letting the watercolor move. Now I'm mixing in some blue, and you can see I'll just pick up my journal, start moving around, letting it mix kind of freely, just seeing what happens. I do get a lot of those paint marks as I'm kind of plopping it on the page, but the more I let it move and dry, then those will disappear. Here's where I get a little bit crazy. So I'm doing some white splatters. That's fine. I protected my pages and I want to let that dry, and then I'm going to come back and add some black splatters for contrast. But you can see I left that rainbow in the back, and one of my black splatters got on the rainbow on a part that was going to be on my page. You'll see me notice it. I see it, then I smear it, and then I'm like, oh my goodness, what is going to happen? So I'll deal with that in a few minutes when I have to put it on the page. But I really like this background. It's loose. A lot of it gets covered up by some of the elements, but I've been really enjoying doing this mixed media feel in my traveler's notebook, and I think it's a fun way to make your traveler's notebooks look different from everyone else, even when you are using the same supplies. A lot of people use Felicity Jane, a lot of people use some of the American Craft supplies, but if you're doing mixed media, there's no way that yours is going to end up looking like anyone else's. So I'm adhering my rainbow pieces. I'm using my ATG gun, which has a really strong adhesive. Knowing that I'm going over the crease on the page, the bend, I want it to be extra strong and extra sturdy. And this adhesive is fantastic. It's really affordable. It lasts a really long time, so I could not recommend it any more. I actually end up playing around a lot with the elements on this page. I have the black and white picture of my son and I cuddling, him looking just a little bit sad, which again is kind of what we're all feeling these days. I mount it on some tissue paper to soften the edges a little bit. turns out my tape gun didn't quite get that edge, so I go back and pick that up. So matting it on the tissue paper softens that edge a little bit, adds a little bit more texture to your spread without adding a lot of bulk, because if you are layering a bunch of scrap paper on top of each other, it does end up being bulky, which is hard to work with in these A5 journals. And then I'm just going to kind of layer that askew with this polka dot piece that I think might be from the Megan collection, but I'm not totally sure. It was in my scrap stash over on the side, which is why it's already cut into. So I'm just gonna trim that out, and you can see I'll kind of make that an askew background piece layering up the picture, and then I start to pull out some different elements. Now my Felicity Jane elements, if it's not the current month's kit, all go into an organizer together. So I have all my journal cards together, all of my floral die cuts together, all of the other die cuts together, all of the label pieces. You guys get the idea. So I pull all those drawers out and have them on my desk when I'm working through scrap pieces like this, so that I can just pick and choose. So I have my journal card. I decided to grab that butterfly to cover up the small mark on my pink rainbow right there, picking some more floral pieces. And this is the fun part to me, is just trialing things. I pick and choose pieces, I move them around, I just try to see what I like where, and a lot of times I'll make a final decision, start to adhere things down, and all of a sudden they look different than when I had them before, and I move them even more. And I think a lot of scrapbookers can feel that way. So I adhere the photo down. Turns out I moved it a little bit more to the right than I had intended, so now my butterfly doesn't fit on that side, so I will be moving the butterfly over to the left, which kind of makes it weird with all of my other elements I had chosen. So I get that butterfly down. I was like, I better start adhering things before I move it again and become unhappy with where I put everything. So place the butterfly down. I really like that heart. When I'm doing the embellishments and the die cuts, I like to put some in the front of a picture and some in behind, and that's where you get the dimension and the depth to your layouts, is when you layer it like that. If you always just do one thing on top of another on top of another, then you lose a little interest. So some of my elements are behind, some in front. I actually ended up taking away the word comfy, which I had originally liked, but knowing that I wanted to use this page to document the day that schools closed here in Virginia, I knew comfy was not the right word, because that's not what any of us were really feeling. So I took that away and added a label where I'm going to put the date a little bit later on, and then I'm going to have these journaling cards. Again, these are spares from previous kits that I adhered down to. I use that yellow one in the back to bring that yellow across the page, and again I'll put it askew so that the journaling card in the back will kind of be askewed from the one that's straight holding all of the typing. And I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to work in that butterfly a little bit, because right now it looks a little odd over there on the right with just kind of floating in midair. So here's my journaling, trimming out. I put it through the typewriter so that I could really get a lot on there, because my regular handwriting is a little bit large. So I'll get those, and then I'll have to go back and look at how I can make that butterfly feel a little bit more incorporated into the page. So got the journaling there. I'm going to pull out my stamp pad here. The title that I'm going to use is Look for the Rainbows, and you can see up there it was. So I spotted in my acrylic drawers more butterflies with black and white polka dots and black and white hearts, which went really well with the black and white polka dots on the opposite page. So all of it ended up being incorporated really nicely, which I was super pleased about. This is the lowercase alpha from Felicity Jane that I just got in their big spring sale. I think it was like $5 for this alpha stamp, which I was super pumped about. I have my VersaFine Onyx black ink, and I am stamping out the bottom one. I'm stamping out one letter at a time, because I knew it was going over some different surfaces with the scrapbook paper and the gesso and the watercolor. I was a little bit nervous to put the whole word on one stamp block, so I decided to do one letter at a time. And I'm building my title backwards, which I often do so that I can get the spacing right. So the title of the page will end up saying Look for the Rainbows, which is something I'm holding on to during this time of just feeling unsettled, and things are just getting canceled, and we're you know, kind of just grieving the loss of what we thought our spring was going to look like. And instead, it looks very different. And I think that can be unsettling and it can feel like you're in the midst of the storm. But when you're in a storm, you can always look for the rainbows at the end. Now I want to stamp the dates that school's closed over there on the label on the left. And so I'm using some archival ink, which normally stamps really nicely onto the labels because they're a little bit glossy, but as soon as I put it down, you can see it's smeared. And I was like, oh no, I was really happy with all the elements. So I took a breath. I decided to stamp the date up at the top, and I will just cover that up. I have a Wordfetti sticker from Felicity Jane that says snuggle, which of course is very appropriate for what's happening. I'm actually going to mat that on a piece of pink paper that coordinates with the pink paper that's over on the right side of the spread. And I will get that element on, cover it up, and everything ends up looking fine. The last step will be to add a few of these enamel heart stickers in various parts of the spread. I like these. They don't add a lot of bulk, but I like the dimensionality that they do add in my Traveler's Notebook layouts and how they can really bring a spread together. Let me know how you are looking for the rainbows in this time of unrest. What are the positive things that are happening in your life? I would love to hear about it. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider hitting that subscribe button as well as the bell notification button. I hope you have a fabulous day, and as always, keep it creative.